His life has sadly spiraled since he left the league over 20 years ago, but his time in the league was filled with fines, suspensions, and defiance that could have predicted a downfall. He could shoot, slash, post up, and rebound, was great at creating his own shot, and knew how to use his size to exploit matchups, and he was at his best when he could operate freely within the offense, but did show in Portland that he could play a role and let the game come to him if he wanted to. Isaiah Ryder was a 2-year superstar at UNLV, and if it weren't for his academic issues, would have likely been a 4-year college star. He struggled with discipline and attitude, so going to a relatively new team like Minnesota likely didn't do him any favors. And after a few controversial years in Minnesota, he was sent to Portland, where he'd have his most team success of his career. But right as they were peaking, Ryder was traded to Atlanta, where an already tumultuous career completely unraveled. And just 3 years later, his career was over at the age of 30. He had so much potential, but lacked accountability, as he was never able to acknowledge his role in the mistakes of his career. And being that he was as good as he was, while routinely missing practices and showing up late for games, one can only imagine the career a motivated Isaiah Ryder would have had. So that's why today's episode is looking at Isaiah J.R. Ryder, as much for what he was as for what he could have been. Let's jog your memory. A California native, Isaiah Ryder was a Bay Area star at Encino High School, but disciplinary issues began at an early age, as throughout his youth, he would skip practices and give up on his teams, but would never face any repercussions because of how talented he was. Going into his senior season, Ryder was determined to take the team to state, but not too long after that, he wouldn't even be suiting up, as he was failing multiple classes, and according to coaches, was also hanging around with the crowd he probably shouldn't have been, and continued to do this throughout his career. And his academic issues were an even bigger concern, as he had committed to Kansas State during the summer, but now wouldn't be eligible to play for the team. And before his senior season ended, he disappeared to small-town Kansas, where he obtained his GED and then enrolled at Allen Community College. He was doing better, and the plan was for him to get his associate's degree and go to Kansas State. But then UNLV's Jerry Tarkanian started calling about Ryder joining his Runnin Rebels. But then Ryder began struggling again, and would drop out before completing his first year. This time he went closer to home and enrolled at Antelope Valley Community College in Southern Cal, where head coach Newton Shillette would help keep him on the right path, as he became one of the top JuCo players in the nation, averaging 33.6 points per game, while also obtaining his degree. And he would take up Tark on his offer, as he was a Runnin Rebel going into his junior season. However, Ryder was coming into an interesting situation. UNLV was coming off an incredible 2-year run where they won the 1990 national championship, but during this time, and well before it, they were dealing with allegations of misconduct and violations. Prior to their 91 season, the case was settled, and they were banned from postseason play for the year. However, they would appeal this, as they wanted a chance to defend their title. And the appeal was successful, but the compromise was that they would serve a 1-year postseason ban the following year, and have no nationally televised games. So a junior Ryder would not be able to showcase his talent on a national stage for the upcoming season, but that didn't stop him from being one of the best players in the nation. Although UNLV had lost their best players to the NBA, they still featured a great starting lineup with a lot of NBA talent. And it was Ryder who was the best of the bunch, as he averaged over 20 points per game and was the second leading scorer in the Big West Conference, and was named first team All Big West. After a 2-2 start, UNLV wouldn't lose the rest of the way, and finished at 26-2, but their dominant year was over due to their postseason ban. And for his junior season, Ryder averaged about 20.5 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists per game. Longtime coach Jerry Tarkanian stepped down after the year, and was replaced by Rolly Massimino. Ryder's senior season was even better from an on-court perspective. He upped his scoring to over 29 points per game to finish second in the nation, and his 8.9 rebounds per game led the team and were second in the conference. He made a big statement by pouring in 44 points against Georgetown in his first nationally televised game, although the Rebels didn't have as successful of a season, as they finished just 21-8, which wouldn't be enough for a tournament berth. However, they would get a spot in the NIT, but then there was more controversy surrounding Ryder. He had already been in the news during the season for allegedly throwing a milkshake at a fast food employee and fighting a cop, but on March 17th, he was suspended for the postseason, as transcripts came out that he had only passed a single class during the fall semester of his junior season, as well as teachers not believing that papers were written by him, and multiple tests being submitted with different handwriting, which a tutor eventually admitted to writing for Ryder. So this wasn't a great end to his college career, but it wasn't exactly uncommon. It's just that Ryder had been caught. But after 2 great seasons for the Rebels, he had cemented his status as a top talent going into the '93 NBA draft.
With the 5th pick in the 1993 NBA draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Isaiah J.R. Ryder from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas.
J.R. Ryder had just become a top 5 draft pick and decided that he wanted to be referred to by his given name Isaiah instead of his nickname JR as a symbol of maturity. But it wasn't long until Ryder was making some immature decisions. A contract holdout would lead to Ryder missing training camp and the preseason until he and Minnesota finally agreed to a 7-year, $25.5 million deal. Ryder had been in California, and the T-Wolves rescheduled their first practice from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. just for Ryder, but he would still show up late. Ryder would make a statement that made it seem like a one-time occurrence, but this wouldn't be the case, as he would miss a practice the following month and then another practice the month after that. But the T-Wolves weren't going to give up on their top pick that easily. Minnesota was coming off a 19-63 season, but did feature second-year forward Christian Laettner, who was coming off of a great rookie year. And even though Ryder's off-the-court issues continued, his talent was undeniable. He would start the year coming off the bench, but after 16 games he would be moved to starter, where he dropped 30 points on 12 of 18 shooting in his first career start. And his great scoring would continue all year, as he would hit double figures in 63 games and have 3 games with at least 30 to finish second on the team in scoring. And he would be pretty efficient, shooting nearly 47% from the field and 36% from deep, as he would finish 3rd among rookies in scoring. Additionally, he would play in the Rookie Challenge game and would participate in and win the '94 Slam Dunk Contest, where he performed his famous East Bay Funk Dunk, which he had originally debuted during the '93 NCAA Dunk Contest. But the T-Wolves were never able to string together more than 2 wins all season, as they finished 20-62. And Ryder's rookie season ended with him averaging about 16.5 points, 4 rebounds, and 2.5 assists per game, en route to being voted first team all-rookie. However, he was accused of kicking a female bar manager on March 12th over his absence from an autograph session, which he pleaded not guilty to, but was eventually convicted of assault. Even with all the distractions, Ryder built on his rookie season by becoming the team's scoring leader as he surpassed Laettner, and had his first and only season putting up at least 20 points per game. But the Wolves were again one of the worst teams in the league, as they possessed the second worst scoring offense. And their rookie Donyell Marshall was really struggling. So on February 19th, they traded him to Golden State for 3rd-year forward Tom Gugliotta, but they would still finish with one of the worst records at 21-61. Ryder would attempt to defend his crown in the dunk contest, but wouldn't be able to repeat. He would also have 2 games with over 40 points, including his career-high 42 with 7 made threes in an April 1st win versus Golden State. But Ryder's biggest highlight of the season would be a complete fluke, when he saved a ball from going out of bounds by blindly throwing it towards the hoop, where it went in for a 3. But his regular season would end with him averaging about 20.5 points, 3.5 rebounds, and 3.5 assists per game. Ryder would be arrested over the summer for violating probation from his assault charge, as he was supposed to attend anger management courses, which he didn't. And Minnesota would draft a future franchise legend in 1995, as new general manager Kevin McHale selected big man Kevin Garnett with the 5th overall pick. Ideally, Ryder and Garnett would have become a dominant duo out west that could have maybe challenged Shaq and Kobe, but that's not what happened. Garnett would be eased into his NBA career this season, but still put up good numbers for a prep-to-pro rookie. Ryder would lead the team in scoring again, and Gugliotta would have a great full season with Minnesota. And seeing what they had in Garnett, the T-Wolves decided to move on from Laettner and sent him and Sean Rooks to the Hawks for Spud Webb and Andrew Lang. Ryder would put up 6 games with at least 30 points and 3 double-doubles, including a career-high 15 rebounds, along with 30 points in a March 3rd win versus Miami. But it was another disappointing year for Minnesota, as they finished 26-56, and Ryder's 3rd season ended with him averaging about 19.5 points, 4 rebounds, and 2.5 assists per game. The T-Wolves reportedly were worried about the influence Ryder might have on their new young star, and decided to move on from him and build around Garnett. A trade was agreed upon between Portland and Minnesota that saw the Blazers get a player of Ryder's talent for next to nothing. But then just days before the trade was set to be announced, Ryder was arrested after being in possession of marijuana and a clone phone, which is a cell phone altered to make free calls illegally, and he would be convicted of a misdemeanor for the marijuana possession. But the Blazers still went through with the trade, and Ryder was in Portland going into the 97 season. He was one of many big offseason acquisitions for a Blazers team reinventing themselves after the Clyde Drexler era, as on top of Ryder, they would complete a trade to acquire second-year forward Rasheed Wallace from Washington, and would sign free agent point guard Kenny Anderson to join guys like Clifford Robinson and Arvydas Sabonis. Although Ryder's time in Portland would be far from problem-free, he gelled well with this Blazers team, and was able to accept a less prominent scoring role with the Blazers having so many capable players. And he also showed a softer side, with examples of him not being as bad as the media make him out to be, like paying for transport and meals for children to attend Blazers home games, and also becoming a big brother to a girl who had lost her mother. Similar to his start in Minnesota, Ryder would cause some problems before the first game of the season, as he didn't show up to the Blazers' final exhibition game, and would be suspended for their season opener. And then right before the season opener, he would be arrested for marijuana possession again. But also similar to his start with Minnesota, he would have a great debut by putting up 21 points on 7 of 10 shooting off the bench in a November 2nd loss to Seattle. He would hit double figures in 61 games and even drop 40 in a November 16th win versus Boston. Ryder would be second on the team in scoring and shoot a career-high 38.5% from deep, as all 5 starters put up at least 13 points per game. And even with Wallace missing a big chunk with a broken thumb, the Blazers still finished at 49-33, which would get Ryder into the postseason for the first time in his career. But Ryder's season wasn't perfect, as he had been suspended or fined for missing multiple practices over the course of the year, and would even refuse to re-enter a late-season game after he was benched for the first half for missing 2 practices. And his postseason debut would be underwhelming, as although he finished 3rd on the team in scoring and 2nd in assists, he committed the most turnovers and shot less than 38% from the field, as the Blazers fell to the Lakers in 4 games. But Ryder's regular season ended with him averaging about 16 points, 4 rebounds, and 2.5 assists per game. Going into the 98 season, Ryder would need to serve a 2-game suspension for his arrest right before his trade to the Blazers. Ryder's 98 season would be his best with Portland, as he led the team in scoring with nearly 20 points per game, which was also good for 15th in the league. His efficiency dropped, but he was also shooting a then career high in field goal attempts and an overall career high in 3-point attempts. But he would also be suspended for 3 games, after spitting on a fan during a November 20th game versus Detroit. The Blazers continued to bolster their team by signing Brian Grant in the offseason, hiring a new head coach in Mike Dunleavy, and then pulling off a mid-season trade, which saw them receive a package headlined by Toronto's Damon Stoudamire by giving up Kenny Anderson. But they did lose Robinson in the offseason. The Trailblazers went 17-16 after the Stoudamire trade to finish 46-36 and earn another playoff berth. The Blazers again featured one of the best starting 5s in basketball, but ran into a Lakers wall for the 2nd straight year, as they lost in 4 to LA. Ryder initially looked to be redeeming himself for last year, as he averaged 24.5 points on nearly 53% shooting in the first 2 games, but would then average just 14 points on barely 30% shooting in the final 2 games. And for the regular season, he averaged about 19.5 points, a career-high 4.7 rebounds, and 3 assists per game. The Blazers would break through during the 99 lockout-shortened season, as once again all 5 starters would hit double figures, with Ryder leading the team, as they had a top 5 scoring offense in the league. Ryder's scoring dropped nearly 6 points per game, and although that was partially due to the game plan, he was also having the worst shooting season of his career, as he was barely cracking 41% from the field. Ryder would still hit double figures in 33 games, but only have 8 games where he scored at least 20. But overall, the Blazers turned in a 35-15 season, which was 3rd best in the league, and won their division. Ryder played 47 out of 50 games, but his 3 missed games were due to suspension, as he was suspended 1 game each for staying at the team hotel and refusing to attend a game, kneeing Sacramento's John Barry, and going into the stands to confront a fan. Portland would begin the playoffs with a first-round sweep of Phoenix, as Ryder played great, leading the team in scoring and shooting nearly 54% from the field, as he would score at least 17 points in each game. Round 2 brought Utah, and although Ryder's efficiency dropped to below 42%, he still shot over 44% from deep and led the team in scoring. He scored his postseason career high of 27 points in a Blazers Game 2 win, and then would also score a game-high 24 points in the series-clinching Game 6. as Portland advanced to the conference finals. Unfortunately, in the conference finals versus San Antonio, Ryder's great play would disappear, as he averaged less than 10 points on less than 36% shooting. He also didn't take a single three in games 1, 2, and 4, and took just 2 in game 3. The Blazers would be swept in 4 games, ending their season, as Ryder would put up averages of about 14 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists. Portland decided they wanted to bring in more veterans, so in the offseason they traded Ryder and Jim Jackson to Atlanta for Steve Smith, which Hawks fans weren't happy about, as Smith was a fan favorite, and reportedly, head coach Lenny Wilkens opposed the trade as well. But nonetheless, Ryder was a Hawk, but no one could have predicted how his time in Atlanta would go. Once again, he was AWOL going into training camp. Then at the home opener, he reassured the fans that he was there to play. But then just a week later, he said he wanted out, partially because he didn't feel like coach Lenny Wilkens was allowing him to fulfill his natural role as a number 1 scoring option. And then by Christmas, he was expressing his desire to sign a long-term deal. So it was safe to say that he was giving the Hawks mixed signals. When Ryder was playing, he played well for the Hawks, but didn't play too smart, as he shot below 42% on a career-high 17.9 attempts, and also shot a career-low 31.1% from deep, while committing nearly 3 turnovers a game. But he was still in the top 25 in scoring with 19.3 points per game, as he and Jim Jackson were the team's top scorers. But over the course of the season, Ryder continued to miss practices, show up late for games, and refused to attend drug counseling after team officials caught him smoking weed in a hotel room and reported him to the league. And the boiling point occurred when he showed up late to a March 9th game versus San Antonio and was told he would be suspended if he showed up late again. Then on March 17th, he was late for a game versus Boston and was suspended 3 games. However, he refused to accept the suspension, as he felt he was the scapegoat and GM Pete Babcock was trying to steal his money. So instead of serving the suspension, he asked for a release, which the Hawks granted on the spot, and he walked out of the arena a free agent, with just 18 games left in the season, and he would not be picked up by another team, ending his year, as his regular season would see him average about 19.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, and a career-high 3.7 assists per game. The Lakers had just come off an NBA title win and wanted to move on from Glenn Rice, so they decided to sign another shooter who was younger and a better athlete in Ryder. Even though Ryder stated this would be a new start for him, he would eventually fall back into old habits. Things started off well, as it seemed Phil Jackson might be the coach to reel Ryder in, as he appeared to be okay with his much lesser role. He was now coming off the bench and receiving about 18 minutes a game, as he was understandably averaging career lows. But then on March 7th, with the Lakers sitting at 41-19, Ryder refused a mandatory league drug test, stemming from his hotel incident with the Hawks, and he would be suspended 5 games for failure to comply with the anti-drug policy. But the bigger hit was that Jackson opted to leave him out of the playoff roster in favor of Tyronn Lue. So Ryder didn't see the court at all during the Lakers' legendary 0-1 championship run. However, they would still award him with the championship ring, and his regular season ended with him averaging about 7.5 points, 2.5 rebounds, and 1.5 points per game. Ryder would latch on with the Nuggets going into the 0-2 season, where he would get about 17 minutes off the bench, but still put up over 9 points on over 45% from the field. But less than a month into the season, after just 10 games, Denver released Ryder. And although Ryder didn't play in the NBA again after this, he wouldn't call it retirement, as he would say he could play again if he wanted to. Ryder's life has taken a dark turn since his time in the NBA, but it's sadly something that people probably predicted, due to his lack of accountability and the people he kept around him. The disciplinary and academic issues he faced in college were unfortunate, but not all that uncommon. And when he was on the court, he was one of the most electrifying players in the nation. There was hope once he got to the NBA and could focus solely on basketball instead of academics, that some of these problems would remedy themselves. And his talent was too good to pass up. And even though he gave Minnesota fans some great memories in his early years, he just couldn't stay out of trouble, and quickly became a liability on a Minnesota team that was building something, which he could have been a great piece of. He was one of the many members of the infamous Jailblazers, and once again he was great on the court, but continued to tarnish his reputation around the league with his coaching clashes and poor attitude. By the time he got to Atlanta, he was set in his ways, and the remainder of his career would just be a waiting game to see when and what he would be suspended for next, until he was out of the league at just 30 years old. He really had all the tools to be a star in the league, and although he never played a full season, His missed games were due to suspension more than injury. He was his own biggest obstacle that stood in the way of a potentially Hall of Fame career. And even though his career did not go how it should have, Isaiah Ryder's talent was undeniable. But that's it for today's episode on Isaiah Ryder. Hope you enjoyed it, and make sure to subscribe for more videos like this one. If you liked it, check out this one on one of his teammates in Portland, or this one on the man he was traded to Atlanta with. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.